Give it up for Stasia Coup. How sickening was that? I was all in my spooky feels. Tell us about that performance. Tell us about what was going through your head when you inspired you that performance.
Who knows? First of all, it was so funny. I was laughing because you said I've been doing drag for like 1.5 years. It's been like 6 months, which is fine. I've always been really drawn to drag that's like very like fairy tale like, and something that kind of just like allows me to like express like kind of like an inner world that like doesn't really get to come out in other arenas ever. Just kind of like a yin to the yang of like my day-to-day like boy life.
Yeah. Was there a message or theme? I feel like there was a lot going through emotionally in that performance.
Yeah,
it's okay if there isn't. Like,
well, I haven't really thought about it like in terms of like words. It's very much like I don't know, like a feeling piece or whatever. But yeah. I think that number is very much a lot about like something about like honoring death and like darkness, which I think is like important to do.
Yeah. Why do you think it's important to do that?
Because
fair question.
Sorry, no. I think it's important because like I'll speak for myself as a in my day-to-day life. I feel like I'm very like happy-go-lucky and like positive intentionally, and like I'm a trans masculine person, and I find it very important for me to like intentionally be masculine in a way that's very gentle and like sweet. And so for me, I think like that also involves like this other side of myself that's like very emotional and like dark, and like maybe has a lot of resentment and like anger inside of her. And I think that she like needs somewhere to be like honored. And so I think like art and drag is the way I kind of like allow her to come out.
I feel that. Yeah, I know that we've discussed this many times, but drag can be so many different things, and I really love sad drag personally. Does anyone else listen to sad music when they're sad? Yeah. I listen to a lot of Lana Del Rey or other like queer sad tunes, you know, when I'm sad, because like it feels good to embrace the darkness or the sadness sometimes, because it's very much part of the human experience, and there's no way to deny that. You know, if you're like crying and someone says, well, you better be happy, buck up, that's not gonna make you feel any better. And so for you to find that as a release or a catharsis, if you will, is a really beautiful thing. Yeah. So you just started drag 6 months ago. What got you on that path? What started you in drag?
I literally moved to Seattle to do drag. I mean, it was really interesting because I was first introduced to drag through Drag Race, which is fucking amazing. I love it. And it only shows like, I feel like a one like little slice of like genre of drag. And I like explicitly remember coming here and seeing a select number of performers, one of actually whom was Arson Nikki. I don't know if anyone was here last year, but Arson Nikki like stood on that little ledge with like only a light and like just lip synced like hide and seek, and it was fucking incredible. And I was like, I didn't know you could do that. And so I saw a number.
You were here at this show.
I was here. Okay, can we just have a moment, because like I've been here for almost exactly 1 year, and I have a crystal clear memory of standing right in the back of this room, like literally sobbing, because I was so like happy that I finally found what I was like looking for. Yeah, in terms of drag and community and like Arson Nikki, Kylie Mooncakes, people who now to me are very dear friends and people who I just like admire so much. That's how I found out about Fresh, who I'm now a resident performer there, which is very exciting. Yeah, but I remember just being completely blown away by some local performers who did drag in ways that I never thought it was possible to do it. And I also have a background in dance, and so I think I bring a lot of my movement into my drag, which I think has been like really, really special for me to kind of marry those two art forms.
You can clap. No one's letting me the clap police here. No, that's really beautiful. And I didn't even know Stasia a year ago when the last big queer talent show happened, and I was hosting it and everything. But this too could be you up on stage in a year's time.
In 1 year.
Yeah, in a fucking year. This could be you. Honestly, goals. Okay, so backtracking more than a year ago, where'd you grow up? Where are you from?
I grew up in a little like suburb outside of San Francisco, and then I grew up like my trans adolescence, which was my early 20s in a tiny mountain town in Arizona. So you can imagine how that was. But I consider those like kind of my two growing up phases.
Gotcha. Why do you consider them different?
One was like more classic childhood, and then the other I think was like my, I don't know, like if you, I don't, depending on what ages you are, I feel like there's almost like a full second like adult formation period that happens, and it certainly did for me. And I think like I had to unlearn so much stuff and then like relearn who I wanted to be intentionally. And I think that happened in like a really special space, but that was also like incredibly not trans friendly, unfortunately, except for like a few like beacons of light.
Yeah, isn't it incredible? Like, this is a youth event and everything, but the growing and the learning about oneself happens throughout your entire life. It doesn't stop when you turn 18 or when you turn 21. Like, this growing about your gender and about who you are is ever evolving. So don't ever forget that. And so there are plenty of, like we said earlier in other interviews, there are plenty of times to keep coming out as who you are rediscovering or discovering who you are. And that's so beautiful in so many ways. So you were in Prescott. Tell us about your, as you became an adult and you moved away from California, that what helped you discover who you were even further?
Many things. I think for myself, I originally came out as a bisexual woman when I was 15. And I lived like very happily as a queer woman for a while. And then when I was, I think like 22 in college, I had kind of like this moment of like, oh fuck, like that's actually not right. And I think it was like a combination of like finally seeing other trans people like around me and like living in ways that like really resonated with me. And I think
in person or
in person, like
cool.
Actual friends in my life, not just like Chaz Bono. And who's great, and I just like don't resonate at all with that type of masculinity. I think for myself, part of what took me so long to come out as trans is I don't identify as a trans man. I identify as transmasculine / like non-binary. And I think like the reason for that is because I hate like white American masculinity so much, and I like want nothing to do with it. And so I think like for so long, like growing up, especially as a queer woman, I was terrorized by like masculinity like constantly. And so I think like I shoved that so far away from myself that like I could never see myself as identifying as that. And then I like fantastically had like people come into my life who demonstrated a really beautiful, artistic, gentle masculinity. And I remember like sitting in front of my computer watching like videos of Johnny Weir ice skating and like staring at pictures of Prince and being like, what is that? Like, I'm interested in that masculinity. And so, yeah, so it's like this beautiful process of kind of like learning like what other options were out there. And then I was like, oh, like this is something that I could be interested in. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
how does your gender identify with your drag and vice versa? How do they interact with each other?
Oh, they're interacting.
Yeah.
Mimi. I feel like, oh my God, like I could talk about this for so long, but I feel like I kind of mentioned this like idea of like a balance earlier, and I think for me, like Stasia exists so that Artie can exist. Artie is my boy human self. I think that, like, truly, I think, like, partially maybe this is, like, a non-binary thing, but I just, like, in my day-to-day life, I'm, like, a tiny, like, happy, like, 5'3" boy who looks like I'm 18. I'm almost 30. And so I feel like I often, like, don't get taken very seriously, and I have to, like, overperform, like, traditional masculinity and kind of just, like, navigate through society in ways that like don't necessarily feel very native to me but are just necessary to being taken seriously. And so I think drag is like the one, oh, and like, I don't know, growing up, I feel like femininity was like always forced on me in ways that didn't feel right. And so I think drag is like my one way to like finally have agency over femininity, and like drag is my way to like show others my femininity instead of others showing it to me, non-consensually. And I think that, along with that sense of agency that I don't have anywhere else in my life, it's also that place where I was mentioning like that emotional release, where I think like, you know, the darkness that I kind of like don't find productive to share other places can come out in like beautiful ways instead through drag.
Amazing. Well, I can't wait to see how your drag continues to develop 6 months from now, and a year from now, and however long you're doing drag for, because you're incredible and have so much light to share to the world. All right, everyone give it up one more time for Stasia Coup.